Hi folks, this is Professor Koenig, and today I am talking with you about Chapter 9 in our Introducing Communication Theory textbook, and Chapter 9 is all about social exchange theory. And similar in some respects to uncertainty reduction theory, this is how we sort of negotiate relationships. This is how we manage our relationships. And social exchange theory is another theory that I think once you get to the heart of it, it's like, it's a no-brainer. Of course, we do this all the time. So social exchange theory basically says that we think about our relationships, our interpersonal relationships, like they're a scale. So on one hand of the scale, we've got the rewards. And on the other hand of the scale, we've got the costs. And it's almost like an economic, like a mathematical problem. When the rewards outweigh the costs, this is a positive relationship. This is a good thing. But when we find in our relationships that the costs in this hand start to outweigh the rewards, they're heavier than the rewards, this turns into potentially a negative relationship. So what are some of the assumptions of social exchange theory? Humans seek rewards, they avoid punishments. So here's my reward, here's my punishment. Don't like the punishment, love the rewards. In my relationships, right? Humans are rational beings. So I like that idea that we're rational because it sort of assumes that this theory rests on the notion that within the limits of information that is available to human beings, people will calculate the costs and rewards of any given situation and guide their behaviors accordingly. So it's important to know that to an individual, the costs and the rewards are different. So my rewards and my costs are not the same as yours. So I might put up with some things in a relationship that you don't put up with or that you would not put up with. I might find things rewarding that you don't find rewarding, right? But this is a rationalization, right? Human beings rationalize things all the time. We are rational. That's what human nature for the most part is mostly rational, right? So human beings are rational. The standards that humans use to evaluate costs and rewards vary over time, right? I put in a clip in the PowerPoint that I love, and it's an old movie, and I'm sure none of you guys know, but in it, the actor says, the actor asks the actress, well, what are you looking for in a relationship? Like, what do women want from guys? And she has this like laundry list of things. Like, I want someone with a sense of humor. I've always wanted someone, like, this was what I always thought I wanted. Somebody who has a good job, somebody who is stable, somebody who's blah. And then somebody who says, bless you to me when I sneeze. And he says, wow, that's a lot of stuff you're asking for. And she said, yeah, now I just want someone who says bless you when I sneeze. And I love that idea because it's like, things change over time. What we once wanted out of relationships, you get to a point in your life where you want something different. Maybe you wanted excitement and thrill rides and Romeo and Juliet type of romance, and then you get a little bit older and you say, I just kind of want somebody who wants to sit on the couch with me and watch Netflix, right? Or maybe that's what you wanted, you thought you wanted. I want someone who just want to sit on the couch with me, and you get there and you say, this is turning into a negative. This is all we ever do, and I don't like that anymore. And so a reward to me would be like, I want someone who wants to go out and have fun on the town, kind of a thing. So they change. Another, some of the assumptions about the theory is just the nature of relationships. So relationships are interdependent. We have to work together, right? That's a relationship by yourself is just you, right? And of course we have relationships with ourselves. We know that because we talked about them in earlier chapters, but this is specifically about two people. Relational life is a process, so it's always changing. It's never stuck. There's a couple different ways to think about this. One of the theory assumptions is this prisoner's dilemma. And it's interesting. Is it necessary to understand the theory? I don't think so. It's just sort of the idea that we are interdependent, and what somebody considers a cost and a reward varies, right? And how we express ourselves in exchanges in a relationship varies between people, between relationships, between situation, right? Given the situation, I might think something's a reward or something is a cost, depending. And if you take me out of that situation and put me in a different one, I might think something differently. So look through that prisoner's dilemma, and if that's confusing, let me know. But it's not like the most important part of this theory. What is important is how we evaluate relationships. And there's this comparison level, which is the standard for what a person thinks he or she should get out of a relationship. And there's also comparison level for alternatives. And this is how people evaluate a relationship based on what their alternatives to the relationship are. So here's how the comparison level, how I might evaluate my marriage, and I will be open with you about it. I love my husband. He is a slob. He is a mess. He leaves his clothing all over the floor, and it drives me bonkers. And I'm not the cleanest person, as you can see by the mess behind me, but just I want someone who will pick up the socks on the floor. I really want that. So for the comparison level, this is a standard for what I think I should get in a relationship. I think I should get someone who picks up the socks off the floor. In terms of the level for alternatives, so how I'm evaluating a relationship based on what the alternatives are. Well, I had, prior to marrying my husband, dated a few, had dates with men. I had boyfriends. Let me go there. And what did I get out of those relationships? Well, some of them were very clean. I dated a dude who was super clean, spotless room all the time. But you know what? He wasn't very nice to me. I dated a guy who certainly would never leave his socks on the floor. But you know what? He never, ever, ever had a job, ever. So he had the time to pick his socks up off the floor, but he didn't have time ever to go to work because he couldn't get a job. So that's an alternative, right? So what's more important to me? Somebody who picks their socks up off the floor, or somebody who treats me well and is nice to me and is a great father and a good provider for his family, and loves me very much, right? I'm weighing those things out. Socks, it's a cost. Is it the biggest cost to me? No, it's not. So if you look at this table on chart 9.1, you'll see like how we sort of look at these alternatives and how I might weigh out the alternatives here. There's some exchange patterns, so how we look at social exchange theory in action. We think about behavior, so some of the sequences that our behavior might play out in these relationship exchanges. So behavioral sequence, a series of actions designed to achieve a goal. So if my goal is to get my husband to pick his socks up off the floor, what are some of the behaviors that I might have, or the behaviors that I might enact? I might be really passive aggressive, and I might put the dirty socks in his side of the bed. You think I've ever done that? No, I've never done that, right? So that might be a behavior. Power, so the degree of dependence a person has on another for outcomes. So what's our power levels? I mean, that's really important to think about in a relationship. Who has the power? Well, in this sock scenario, my husband has the power to pick up his socks, right? Is that like a power dynamic in our relationship? Maybe, and to some extent, but I also have the power to not clean his socks, right? I do the laundry most of the time in the house, not always, but most of the time. I could just let the socks pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up, right? If that's what I wanted to do. Is that healthy towards our relationship? Probably not. There's fate control, the ability to affect a partner's outcome. So maybe that power of me not doing the socks, that would be fate control in a sense, right? So I'm sort of, the fate of you having clean socks, my husband, is in sort of my hands, right? You could go out and buy yourself some new socks if that's the way we're headed, but I hold the sort of the fate of clean socks in my power. And behavioral control, so the power to change another's behavior. How could I change his behavior? So I could use these sort of passive-aggressive tactics, or I could have a conversation. Say, it really hurts my feelings. I clean up after our kids all the time. Can you please clean up your socks? Like, what's the big deal, right? So we could have these conversations, and that would be a behavior change, right? That I'm trying to control his behavior. I don't want to talk too much about these matrix. I mean, I think they're interesting and I think they're important, but I like the idea of exchange structures better, which happens on page 174 in our textbook, and I think it's easier to understand how we use this idea of like exchange in our relationships. So we have a direct exchange. So I give, you give, right? That's a direct exchange. We have a generalized exchange. So generalized exchange is we both give to somebody else. So how might that work in our sock scenario? Well, maybe my sons help me clean up the socks, and I clean up the socks, and so we're both, the exchange is we're both cleaning up the socks. I don't know if that works that well because neither one of us are getting out of it what we want to get out of it, but maybe because I am teaching my sons to clean up as well. So I am getting something out of it, right? That's a reward for me. My sons are learning a valuable lesson in cleaning and taking care of their things. And so by doing that, they sort of help me clean up the socks on the floor. So that could be the generalized. And then the productive exchange. Hey, how about this idea? I'll pick up the socks on the floor on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. You pick them up on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. This is an A-B productive exchange. We're both getting something out of this. We're both feeling good about it, right? So that's pretty much social exchange theory. And again, like I said at the beginning of this little video, at the heart of it, it's like a no-brainer. Like, yes, we do this all the time. We weigh out the costs and rewards of our relationship. The things that are good to us, right? The things that are bad to us. And we have to sort of see, well, is it really good? Is it really bad? How do I feel? And then we use those things to evaluate our relationships. So I hope that was helpful to you. Please ask me any questions that you might have.